Captain Jai-Ho Park gazed through the massive bridge windows of the immense Nemesis as the stars streaked past in brilliant streams of light. The command center hummed with quiet activity as crew members monitored their stations, each focused on their vital roles aboard Earth's first true interstellar warship. The Nemesis represented everything humanity had achieved in the past century. Its hull gleamed with quantum armor that could absorb and redistribute energy impacts. The fusion drives that powered the massive vessel were elegant in their design, pushing the boundaries of human engineering. Even now, they propelled the ship smoothly through space at speeds that would have seemed impossible just decades ago. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy signatures ahead," reported Lieutenant Song from the sensor station. Her fingers danced across the holographic display as she analyzed the incoming data. "They don't match any known patterns in our database." Park nodded, maintaining his composed demeanor despite the tension building in his chest. This mission had always been about first contact, but now that the moment approached, the weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever. "Show me the readings," he ordered. The main view screen filled with streams of data and sensor imagery. The energy signatures were unlike anything they had seen before, too precise, too controlled to be natural phenomena. They were artificial, and they were massive in scale. "Multiple objects detected," Song continued. "Their size. Captain, the smallest one is bigger than our largest space station." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had trained for this, but simulation could never fully prepare them for reality. Park straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Maintain course. Let's show them that humanity knows how to make a proper entrance." As they approached the Centauri system, more details became clear. The unknown vessels moved with impossible grace, their hulls shimmering with what appeared to be energy shields far beyond Earth's current technology. They arranged themselves in what was clearly a defensive formation. "We're being hailed," announced Communications Officer Lee. "The signal. It's perfectly matched to our communications protocols. They've been studying us." Park felt a chill run down his spine. "On screen," he commanded. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure in an ornate uniform that seemed to be made of living crystal. High Commander Taiwan Kim of the Stellar Federation cut an imposing figure, his features sharp and his expression cold. "Greetings, primitive vessel." Kim spoke in perfect English, though his lips moved slightly out of sync with his words. "You have entered the territory of the Stellar Federation. We have been observing your species for some time." Park maintained his diplomatic composure. "We come in peace, representing Earth and humanity. We seek peaceful contact and exchange of knowledge." Kim's expression didn't change. "Your species has potential, but you are far too young to be traveling these distances. Submit to Federation authority now, and we will guide your development. Refuse, and you will face isolation. The choice is yours, but be aware that resistance would be unfortunate." While Kim spoke, Park noticed Officer Song discreetly signaling him. The sensor data she had compiled was disturbing. Traces of massive mining operations in nearby systems, evidence of stripped worlds and depleted resources. The Federation's probes had been busy, and not just watching Earth. "We request time to consider your offer," Park responded carefully. "This decision affects all of humanity." "You have one standard rotation," Kim replied. "We will await your response." The transmission ended abruptly. Park immediately called his senior staff to the tactical room. The evidence was clear. The Federation wasn't offering guidance, they were demanding submission. Their probes had systematically stripped resources from developing worlds throughout this sector of space. "They've been doing this for centuries," Science Officer Yoon explained, pointing to the data. "They find developing civilizations, force them into submission, and exploit their resources. The technology gap makes resistance nearly impossible." Park looked at each of his officers in turn. They had trained together, trusted each other, and now faced humanity's greatest challenge together. "We didn't come all this way to submit to tyranny," he said firmly. "Start analyzing their shield frequencies. Map their patrol patterns. If they want to threaten Earth, they'll learn that humanity doesn't bow easily." As the crew began their preparations, Park returned to the bridge and stared out at the Federation ships. They were beautiful in their way, all sleek lines and advanced technology. But beneath that beauty lurked a cruel empire, and he had no intention of letting Earth become their next victim. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. But what the Federation didn't realize was that they had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated human determination. The ENS Nemesis might be just one ship, but it carried the hopes and dreams of an entire planet. And its crew was ready to show the galaxy that humanity would not go quietly into submission. Lieutenant Hae-Jin Lee stared at her data screen, rubbing her tired eyes as she processed the information streaming across it. The Federation's data packet, meant to inform Earth of their new obligations, had revealed far more than intended. She had been analyzing it for hours, finding patterns that made her heart race with excitement. "Captain Park, you need to see this," she called over the ship's comm. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, organizing her findings as she waited. Captain Park arrived minutes later, his uniform slightly wrinkled from the long hours everyone had been working. "What have you found, Lieutenant?" Lee pointed to the neural mapping displays. "Look at these patterns, sir. The Federation has detailed brain scans of every species they've encountered, but our patterns are completely different." She brought up two displays side by side. One showed the neural pathways of a Federation citizen, organized in neat, predictable lines. The other showed a human brain scan, with pathways that crossed, connected, and rewired themselves constantly. Where they process information in sequence, we think in parallel. Their minds follow set patterns. Ours create new paths constantly. It's why their AI can't predict our actions, Lee explained, her voice growing more animated. "They've never seen anything like us." Park leaned closer to the display. "Can we use this?" "We already are," Lee replied. "Their ships are controlled by AI systems based on their linear thinking. That's why they're so powerful but so predictable." Their discussion was interrupted by the ship's alert system. "3 Federation cruisers approaching," announced the bridge officer over the comm. "They're demanding we follow them to a diplomatic station." Park straightened up. "They're not taking us anywhere. Lieutenant, get to your station. Let's test your theory." The bridge buzzed with controlled tension as Park took his command chair. The Federation cruisers loomed ahead, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the starlight. Each was 3 times the size of the Nemesis. "They're charging weapons," reported Tactical Officer Min. "Shields at maximum power." Park's mind raced with possibilities, seeing patterns and connections that would never occur to the linear thinking Federation. "Helm, plot course 039. Engineering, prepare for my mark." The Federation ships moved to surround them in a standard triangular formation. Their maneuver was textbook perfect, and perfectly predictable. "Now," Park ordered, "full power to the port thrusters." The Nemesis spun on its axis, using the momentum in a way that violated standard space combat doctrine. The move should have torn the ship apart. Instead, it brought their railguns to bear on all 3 cruisers simultaneously. "Fire!" The railguns roared to life, launching projectiles at speeds approaching that of light. The Federation ship's energy shields flickered brilliant blue. They were designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The shots penetrated clean through their shields. The Federation cruisers reeled from the impact, their perfect formation shattered. Alarms blared across their command channel. "Impossible," came the Federation commander's voice. "Those are primitive weapons. Sometimes the old ways work best," Park replied calmly. "Stand down your vessels, or the next shot won't be a warning." Lee watched from her station as the Federation ship's eye attempted to compensate. But their programming couldn't adapt to the unprecedented situation. Their shields had been recalibrated to stop railgun rounds, But Park was already implementing his next unexpected move. "Helm, dive between their ships," he ordered. "Engineering, vent plasma from the port nacelle." The Nemesis dove through the Federation formation. The vented plasma clouded their sensors, and by the time it cleared, the Earth ship had vanished into a nearby asteroid field. "Their sensors can't track us through the mineral interference," Lee reported, her earlier theory confirmed. "Their AI is trying to predict where we'll exit, but it's calculating based on standard tactical doctrine." Park smiled. "Then we won't use standard tactics. Plot 5 potential exit trajectories. We'll use none of them." The Federation ships held position, their AI calculating and recalculating possible scenarios. But they were using logic trees, unable to make the intuitive leaps that came naturally to humans. "The Federation thinks they've got us cornered," Park addressed his crew. "But they've never faced humans before. They don't understand that what they see as random, illogical behavior is our greatest strength." The Nemesis waited in the asteroid field, its crew tense but confident. They had proven that humanity's primitive technology, guided by unpredictable human minds, could stand against the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Lee continued monitoring the Federation's communications. Their confusion was evident. Their perfect systems had been bypassed, their superior technology overcome by weapons they had dismissed as obsolete. They had no protocols for this situation. "They're requesting reinforcements," she reported with a slight smile. "They don't know how to handle one ship that doesn't follow their rules." "Then let's show them what else we can do," Park replied. "Humanity is just getting started." The old mining station orbiting the red dwarf star looked abandoned from the outside. Its outer hull was scared and pitted, exactly what you'd expect from a forgotten outpost. But inside, it hummed with secret activity. Captain Park walked through its dimly lit corridors, following their mysterious contact to a hidden meeting chamber. Inside, he found representatives from a dozen different species waiting. Some looked almost human, others were strikingly different, but all shared the same look of desperate hope in their eyes. At the center of the group stood Su-Jin Cho, a scientist whose people had suffered under Federation rule for generations. "Welcome, Captain Park," Cho said, her translator converting her words to perfect English. "Your victory against the Federation patrol has traveled faster than light itself through the underground networks. You've given us something we haven't had in centuries: hope." Park took his seat at the rough-hewn table. "Tell me about your people," he said quietly. Cho's eyes darkened with memory. "We were like you once. We had just discovered faster-than-light travel when the Federation found us. They came with promises of guidance and protection. Within a generation, they had stripped our worlds of resources and turned our people into workers in their factories." Other representatives nodded in agreement. Each had a similar story, of promises broken, of freedom lost, of generations living under Federation control. "But you," Cho continued, "you proved they aren't invincible. Your ship, your tactics, they'd never seen anything like it. The Federation's perfect systems can't predict human behavior." Park leaned forward. "Then perhaps it's time we work together. Earth won't submit to Federation control, but we can't fight them alone." The meeting lasted hours as they shared information, resources, and plans. The Federation's grip on their worlds was strong, but not absolute. There were hidden shipyards, secret research facilities, and most importantly, people ready to fight for their freedom. Back on the Nemesis, Park met with Commander Do Yun Kang, who had been coordinating with the rebel forces. "They have ships," Kang reported, "hidden away in asteroid fields and nebula. Good ships, but their crews are trained to fight by Federation rules." "Then we'll teach them something new," Park replied. "Something the Federation won't expect." Over the next weeks, the Free Systems Alliance took shape in secret. The Nemesis became a training ground, teaching crews from a dozen worlds how to fight unpredictably, how to use their ships in ways the Federation's AI could never anticipate. The opportunity to test their training came sooner than expected. A Federation battle group entered the Proxima Centauri system, hunting for the rebels they knew were hiding somewhere in the sector. Commander Kang led the Allied fleet, now trained in human tactical doctrine. Their ships were a mix of stolen Federation vessels and modified civilian craft, but their crews had learned to think like humans, unpredictably, creatively, and without limitations. The battle began conventionally, with the Federation ships moving into their standard attack formation. But then Kang's fleet did something unprecedented. They scattered in seemingly random directions, each ship acting independently instead of as a coordinated unit. The Federation's AI struggled to track multiple targets acting without pattern. Their targeting computers couldn't predict where the rebel ships would move because there was no logic to predict. Only human intuition guiding each vessel. Now, Kang ordered, and the Allied ships struck from all directions at once. They used tactics that violated every rule of space combat, skimming dangerously close to each other, using their own ships' energy signatures to mask their companions, firing their weapons in ways their designers never intended. The Federation battle group's perfect formation fell apart. Their ships, controlled by AI that could only follow programmed responses, couldn't adapt to the chaos around them. One by one, they were disabled or destroyed, their crews forced to abandon ship. When the battle ended, not a single rebel ship had been lost. The Federation's first major defeat was complete, and news of it spread quickly through the subjugated worlds. "This is just the beginning," Su-Jin Cho said as she watched the battle recordings later. "Other worlds will hear of this. They'll know that resistance is possible." Park nodded, watching the Federation ships retreating from the system. The Federation built their empire on control and predictability. They never imagined they'd face an enemy who breaks all their rules. The Free Systems Alliance had made its first strike, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had brought something new to the stars, not just technology or weapons, but a way of thinking that could break the chains of empire. As Park looked out at the stars, he knew the real war was just beginning. But now they had allies, hope, and a strategy the Federation could never counter: human unpredictability. Chief Tactical Officer Min Seo-yoon stood before the assembled captains of the Free Systems Alliance, pointing to the holographic display of a dense nebula. The commanders, representing a dozen different species, watched with interest as she explained her new strategy. "On Earth, we once fought wars under the seas," she explained, her voice clear and confident. "Our submarines would hide in ocean currents, using natural phenomena to mask their presence. We can apply the same principles to space warfare." The display shifted, showing the complex currents of radiation and matter flowing through the nebula. To most spacers, these areas were navigation hazards to be avoided. Yoon saw them differently, as perfect hiding places. "The Federation avoids these regions," she continued. "Their AI considers them too unpredictable. But that's exactly why they're perfect for us." Aboard the Nemesis, Yoon's theories were put into practice. Captain Park had given her permission to modify their sensors to work within the stellar phenomena that most ships avoided. The crew trained relentlessly, learning to navigate by instinct when their instruments were limited by their surroundings. Their first test came at the Antares supply lines. The Nemesis lay hidden in a dense molecular cloud, its systems powered down to minimal levels. The crew wore thermal suits as the ship's temperature dropped to match their surroundings. "Federation convoy approaching," whispered the sensor operator, reading the subtle disturbances in the cloud's natural movements. 6 cargo ships, 2 escorts. Yoon watched the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The Federation ships moved in their usual rigid formation, their sensors sweeping in predictable patterns. They never thought to look inside the molecular cloud. Their combat doctrines classified such regions as no-go zones. "Fire solution calculated," Yoon reported to Captain Park. "They'll never see us coming." Park nodded. "Execute." The Nemesis surged forward, riding the natural currents of the cloud like a submarine using ocean thermoclines. Their first shots struck before the Federation ships even registered their presence. The escort vessels fell into their programmed defensive patterns, exactly as Yoon had predicted. "They're calling for reinforcements," communications reported. Response time estimated at 6 minutes. "More than enough time," Yoon said with a slight smile. The Nemesis danced through the cargo formation, its railguns precisely targeting propulsion and control systems. Within minutes, the entire convoy was disabled. "Allied salvage ships are on approach," Yoon reported. "We should disappear before their reinforcements arrive." The Nemesis slipped back into the molecular cloud, leaving behind a convoy of stranded ships and very confused Federation crews. By the time the Federation battlecruisers arrived, they found only empty space and disabled vessels. Word of the ghost ship spread through Federation space. The Nemesis became a legend, appearing from nowhere, striking with devastating precision, and vanishing before the mighty Federation fleet could respond. Yoon's tactics spread throughout the Alliance fleet. Ships learned to use solar flares as cover, to hide in asteroid fields, to appear and disappear like the submarines of Earth's oceans. The Federation's response was always the same. They increased patrols, following their standard doctrine, never adapting their tactics. "Their greatest strength is their greatest weakness," Yoon explained during a strategy session. "Their ships are technically superior in every way, but they're limited by their programming. They can't improvise, can't think creatively. Every response is calculated based on past data." The Alliance took full advantage of this weakness. They never attacked the same way twice. Each strike introduced new tactics, new approaches that the Federation's AI couldn't predict because they had no historical precedent to analyze. One particularly successful operation saw the Nemesis using a pulsar's regular emissions to mask their approach. The Federation base never saw them coming. Their sensors were automatically filtering out the pulsar's interference, and with it, the approaching Alliance ship. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years," Yoon told her tactical students. "We've learned to adapt, to improvise, to use our enemy's strength against them. The Federation thinks war is a science. We know it's an art." As the Alliance's success grew, the Federation's response became increasingly rigid. They doubled their patrols, increased their sensor sweeps, and reinforced their bases, all according to their standard protocols. But they never thought to look in the spaces they considered impossible to navigate, never considered that their enemies might use their own safety restrictions against them. The Nemesis and its sister ships became the bogeymen of Federation space. They struck from solar coronas, rode gravitational waves between binary stars, and used magnetic interference as cover. Every victory proved what Yoon had known from the start. That space warfare wasn't about having the most advanced ships, but about using them in ways your enemy never expected. As she watched the tactical display showing another successful strike, Yoon smiled. The Federation had built an empire on predictability and control. They never understood that their greatest enemy would be human creativity, the art of warfare that no eye could master. The colony world of New Haven hung like a blue-green jewel in space, its cities gleaming under the light of its twin suns. From orbit, it looked peaceful, prosperous, exactly as the Federation wanted their worlds to appear. But Captain Park knew the truth about what lay beneath that perfect surface. The Nemesis led a fleet of 30 ships toward the planet. Each vessel carried a crew trained in human tactics, ready to strike against the Federation's orbital defenses. This wasn't just another raid. It was the beginning of something bigger. "All ships report ready," Communications Officer Lee announced. "The ground resistance is standing by." Park nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Begin Operation Sunrise." The Alliance fleet split into smaller groups, each approaching from a different vector. Federation defense platforms activated, their targeting systems trying to predict attack patterns that didn't exist. The defenders had expected a direct assault. Instead, they faced chaos. On the planet's surface, Da-Yum Kim led her resistance fighters out of hiding. For 3 generations, her people had worked as little more than slaves in the Federation's factories. Today, that would end. "Movement in sectors 3 and 4, reported a sensor operator. Federation ground forces are mobilizing. The space battle erupted in a display of light and energy. Alliance ships danced between Federation defensive fire, their movements unpredictable and precise. The Nemesis itself led the charge, its railguns clearing a path through the orbital defenses. Ground teams are moving. Kim's voice came through the command channel. We're taking the central control facilities. The Federation's response was predictably rigid. Their ground forces moved in standard patrol patterns, their defensive grids activated in sequence, exactly as the Resistance had expected. Kim's fighters, trained in human guerrilla tactics, slipped through their lines with ease. Main control center secured, Kim reported hours later. We're shutting down their automated defense systems. The space battle had already turned decisive. Federation ships, unable to adapt to the Alliance's fluid tactics, either retreated or surrendered. The orbital platforms, their AI confused by multiple contradictory threats, fell one by one. As the dust settled, the true scope of their victory became clear. New Haven wasn't just another Federation world. It was a major industrial center, home to millions of subjugated workers from dozens of species. Its liberation sent shockwaves through the Federation. Dae-Yun Kim stood beside Captain Park as they addressed the planet's population. For generations, we've lived under Federation control, she said, her voice carrying across the massive square. Today, we stand free. The celebrations lasted for days, but the real work was just beginning. Kim took charge of the transition government, working to transform a society built on Federation control into one of independence. It wasn't easy. Centuries of oppression had left deep scars. They never taught us how to be free, she told Park during a planning session. They controlled everything: education, work, even what we could think. Now we have to learn how to think for ourselves. The success at New Haven changed everything. Other Federation worlds began to see hope. Underground resistance movements grew bolder. The myth of Federation invincibility, already cracked by the Nemesis's earlier victories, now lay shattered. Reports are coming in from across Federation space, Lee announced during a staff meeting. Protests, strikes, open defiance. They're losing control. The Federation's response only made things worse. They cracked down harder, imposed stricter controls, and pushed more worlds toward rebellion. Their rigid thinking couldn't comprehend that their usual tactics were making the situation worse. Park watched from the Nemesis's bridge as New Haven's cities lit up the night side of the planet. Where once there had been only the efficient lighting of Federation control, now there was color and life. It was becoming a symbol of what freedom could look like. The Federation thought they could control every aspect of life. Kim said during a broadcast that reached across Federation space. They forgot that the desire for freedom is stronger than any control system. The Nemesis reputation grew with each passing day. Federation citizens whispered about the ship that could appear anywhere, the humans who fought in ways their masters couldn't predict. But now they whispered with hope instead of fear. More worlds reached out to the Alliance, asking for help, offering support. The Federation's grip was slipping, and everyone could see it. The primitive humans they had dismissed had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest empire could be defeated by those who dared to think differently. As the Nemesis prepared to leave New Haven, Park looked back at the freed world. One victory had turned into something much larger. The beginning of a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. The chains were breaking, one world at a time, and there was no force in space that could stop it now. Admiral Jeho Park stood in the Alliance Command Center, watching as hundreds of lights flickered across the massive star map. Each light represented a world in revolt, a system breaking free from Federation control. What had started with one ship's defiance had grown into the largest uprising the galaxy had ever seen. Sector 7 is reporting success, Coordinator Soo-Jin Cho announced, her eyes bright with excitement. The mining colonies have overthrown their overseers. They're requesting Alliance support to secure their system. Park nodded, marking another sector as free on the strategic display. Around him, representatives from 24 species coordinated the largest revolution in galactic history. The command center, hidden in an asteroid base, buzzed with activity day and night. "The Federation is pulling forces from the outer systems," reported Tactical Officer Yoon. "They're trying to fortify their core worlds, but that's leaving the frontier systems vulnerable." The Alliance had planned for this moment. Years of preparation, of building networks, of teaching human combat tactics to oppressed species, were finally bearing fruit. The Federation's perfect order was crumbling in the face of chaos they couldn't control. The Nemesis, now the flagship of a vast liberation fleet, led the charge into another contested system. Ships of different designs and species flew in formation around it, their crews trained in the unpredictable tactics that had proven so effective. "Multiple Federation signatures detected," the sensor officer reported. "Standard response formation." Park smiled slightly. Even now, the Federation couldn't break free from their rigid patterns. "Launch Operation Starburst," he ordered. The Alliance fleet broke apart, each ship following its own course, creating a sphere of movement that the Federation's targeting computers couldn't track. Their ships, combining captured Federation technology with human tactical innovations, struck from all directions at once. On the factory world of New Detroit, workers seized control of automated production lines. On the agricultural planets of the Centauri sector, farmers turned harvesting machines into weapons. Each victory inspired more worlds to rise up. "Federation communication channels are in chaos," reported Communications Officer Lee. "Their command structure is breaking down. Different sectors are acting independently." This was what they had waited for. The Federation's greatest strength, its unified control, had become its greatest weakness. As systems broke free, the central authority lost its grip on power. Su Jin-cho coordinated with resistance leaders across space, ensuring each newly freed world received the support it needed. "We're not just breaking chains," she told Park during a brief rest period. "We're building something new." The Nemesis led a task force deep into Federation space, supporting uprisings on core worlds that had never known anything but Federation control. Their raids were precise, targeted, designed to show oppressed populations that freedom was possible. "Federation fleet incoming," Tactical announced during one such mission. 5 capital ships, multiple support vessels. Park watched as his fleet executed a maneuver that would have been impossible just years ago. Ships dove through the gravity wells of binary stars, using radiation bursts to mask their approach. The Federation fleet, still following their standard combat protocols, never saw the real attack coming. In the aftermath, more Federation crews defected, joining the growing Alliance fleet. They brought with them not just ships but knowledge, the codes and protocols that made the Federation's technology work. "Their own people are turning against them," Cho observed as she reviewed the latest reports. "Even their most loyal worlds are questioning the old order." The revolution spread faster than anyone had expected. Worlds that had been under Federation control for centuries seized their chance at freedom. The Alliance could barely keep up with requests for support and training. Park walked through the Nemesis's corridors, noting how the crew had changed. Humans worked alongside aliens from a dozen worlds, each bringing their own skills and perspectives to the fight. What had started as one Earth ship had become something much greater. "We're receiving new reports," Lee announced during a strategy session. "The Federation Council is divided. Some members are calling for negotiations." It was the first crack in the Federation's highest levels. Their perfect system, faced with chaos it couldn't control or predict, was starting to break apart from within. The revolution wasn't just about military victories. It was about showing the galaxy a different way to live. Each freed world chose its own path, its own form of government. The Alliance provided support and protection, but never control. As Park watched another Federation fortress fall to the combined Alliance fleet, he realized they had already won. The Federation's power wasn't in its ships or technology. It was in the belief that their way was the only way. Once that belief was broken, their empire began to crumble. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, as if celebrating the freedom spreading across the galaxy. What had begun with one ship's defiance had become a force that would reshape the future of all species. The crystalline spires of the Federation capital glittered in the light of its 3 suns. The Nemesis, its hull bearing the marks of countless battles, led the combined fleet of the Free Systems Alliance toward their final objective. Admiral Park stood on his bridge, watching as the Federation's last great fleet assembled to meet them. "They've deployed everything they have left," Tactical Officer Yoon reported. "Over 200 capital ships. All their remaining automated defense platforms are active." The Alliance fleet was smaller in numbers, but each ship carried crews who had learned to think beyond the Federation's rigid patterns. They had fought their way across the galaxy to reach this moment. "Open a channel to the Federation Council," Park ordered. The massive view screen lit up, showing the grand chamber where the Federation's leaders had guided their empire for centuries. Now they looked uncertain, faced with a force they couldn't predict or control. "You have a choice," Park announced, his voice calm but firm. "The old order is ending. You can help build something new, or you can fall with it. The galaxy will be free either way." The Council's response came in the form of weapons fire. The space above the capital erupted in light as the final battle began. The Nemesis led its fleet in maneuvers that defied conventional tactics, using every lesson learned in their long campaign. "Federation ships are moving to standard attack formation Delta," Yoon reported with a slight smile. "They never learn." The Alliance fleet split into smaller groups, each acting independently, creating chaos in the Federation's perfect defensive grid. Ships that had once been enemies now fought side by side, their crews combining different species' perspectives with human unpredictability. Su Jin Cho's voice came through the command channel. "Ground teams are in position. Resistance cells on the capital world are moving." The battle raged for hours. Federation ships fell one by one, their sophisticated AI unable to adapt to tactics that change with each passing moment. The Nemesis itself engaged 3 Federation dreadnoughts, using their own predictability against them. "Their defensive line is breaking," communications reported. "We're receiving surrender signals from multiple ships." Park watched as the Federation's last fleet crumbled. The Nemesis, scared but undefeated, approached the capital world. Its presence alone had become a symbol of freedom, of change, of the power of thinking differently. The Federation Council surrendered as resistance forces entered their chamber. The empire that had ruled the galaxy through control and predictability fell to those they had dismissed as primitive and chaotic. In the days that followed, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to build something new. The Galactic Cooperative emerged from these meetings, not an empire, but a partnership of free worlds. "Each world will choose its own path," Park announced at the founding ceremony. "Earth joins this cooperative as equals, not conquerors. Our strength lies not in control, but in our diversity." The principles of the new order were simple: freedom, self-determination, and mutual support. The rigid hierarchy of the Federation gave way to a flexible network of independent worlds, each contributing their unique perspectives to the whole. Years passed. The Nemesis made its final journey back to Earth, its mission complete. As Park walked through its corridors one last time, he remembered all the battles, all the worlds freed, all the lives changed. "We came to the stars seeking knowledge," he told the crowd gathered to witness the ship's transformation into a museum. "We found our true purpose in securing freedom for all." The Nemesis now orbits Earth as a reminder of what is possible when people dare to think differently. Its scared hull tells stories of battles won not through superior technology, but through creativity and determination. Visitors from across the galaxy come to see it. Young beings of all species stand in its observation deck, looking out at the stars their ancestors once feared. They learn that the greatest power lies not in weapons or control, but in the ability to imagine something better. The galaxy changed not because humanity was stronger or more advanced, but because they showed that another way was possible. The Federation's perfect order gave way to something more chaotic but more alive. a cosmos where each world and each being could choose their own destiny. As the three suns set on the former Federation capital, now the center of the Galactic Cooperative, their light fell on a very different galaxy than the one the Nemesis first entered. The stars themselves seemed brighter, as if celebrating the freedom that now flowed between them.